Welcome to Cannabis Roundup, presented by Outlaw Technology. I'm Hans Dietrich, and Bree Oaxaca, my co-host, is off this week. We have Dave Eagleson, CEO and founder of Outlaw Technology, sitting in for her. Hey, Dave.
Hey, Hans. Happy to be here.
Each week, we speak with companies in the trenches of the cannabis industry, and our guests today are Mary Lou Bosco, CEO of AIM Inc. and AIM North America, and Dwayne Roebuck, Retail and IoT Internet of Things Channel Manager for BlueStar US. Hey, guys, and welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you, guys. Honor and privilege to be here.
We're honored to have you. And you guys are not directly in the cannabis industry per se, but you are very, very much connected to the industry. This is going to be an interesting show and slightly different than our usual format. Because of that, I'm sure a lot of our listeners, if not most, are not familiar with AIM Inc., and some may not be familiar with BlueStar. So I'd like to first start there. If you could just give a little bit of background on your companies. So Mary Lou, why don't we start with you?
Absolutely. Thank you. AIM Global has been around for 50 years. We are an unbiased industry association promoting the adoption, growth, and interoperability of asset tracking technologies. Some of you might be wondering what's an asset tracking technology, but many of you are using them each day, like barcodes, QR codes, RFID, RTLS. These are things, these technologies track things. For example, barcodes make it possible for consumers to be able to self-check out in a grocery store. QR codes are in many products these days and can be scanned and give you product information at your fingertips. Mag stripes, they're on the back of your credit cards and your driver's license. It's technologies that you use when you swipe those particular cards. And then even transponders are activated through RFID technology. And you see that when you go through toll passings, toll roads throughout at least here in the United States. We represent any organization that uses, implements, resells, or develops these technologies, including manufacturers, software vendors, integrators, users, academia, even government agencies. We are a global organization, and we have members and active participants around the world, whether it's here in North America, in Europe, and also in the Asia Pacific area. These technologies are used across multiple vertical markets. In cannabis, you all are using these technologies for your traceability requirements, no different than the track and trace that's being done in retail and pharmaceutical, food supply chains, logistics, transportation, and many other vertical markets. Check out the organization. We're at www.aimglobal.org.
Thank you, Mary Lou. And we at Outlaw are members of AIM, as I know Dwayne is.
Yes.
So Dwayne, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you guys do?
Thank you so much. I'm Dwayne Roebuck with BlueStar, Senior Channel Strategy Manager for Retail and Hospitality, IoT, RFID. BlueStar, what we are is we're a distributor of technology equipment. So think, Mary Lou talked about barcode scanners, printers, digital signage, RFID. We also distribute some sensors. Globally, we are the largest distributor of point-of-sale equipment. Bit of background in terms of how I and BlueStar got into the cannabis industry. It's been about 6 to 7 years. I identified this as an area for growth and opportunity and felt like we could, working through our channel partners, we could help the cannabis industry. A buddy of mine I was in Seattle. He took me around to growers and processors and dispensary owners early on and really got me indoctrinated in terms of, how things are being done from an operational standpoint. And so at BlueStar, back then, it wasn't as fashionable to be in the cannabis industry. So it was a bit of a struggle to get some of our executives and some of our manufacturers to embrace this industry. But, we quickly realized that this is a retail industry and they have retail challenges, just like a lot of our, let's call them traditional retail companies do, but with a twist, because there is some, variation in terms of the restrictions and the limitations for people in the cannabis industry. So we've been a partner. I'm proud to support AIM and Outlaw Technologies in their endeavors in terms of, making headway in the cannabis industry and really treating this like the viable marketplace and opportunity that it is. Because, if you strip away the actual product and some of the, legalities around it, again, most of the challenges are, similar to what we see in traditional retail space. So it's an honor and a privilege, again, to be on this. And I welcome anyone, that, wants to get more information to reach out to me.
It's our privilege to have both of you. Dave, I know you have a question or a comment.
Yeah. So just to kind of set the stage, I reached out to Dwayne. I know Dwayne and Mary Lou for quite some time. So my background, and I think I've talked to folk on this podcast before, having done technology RFID deployments with Walmarts and others throughout the years. So look, Outlaw joined AIM because we realized that, look, this industry, as Dwayne pointed out, is pretty much a retail business. Yes, it has some nuances, which is kind of what Outlaw has been focused on, but the nice thing about it is standardization is going to be needed. There's going to need to be an ecosystem. Look, when Walmart was looking at RFID as a technology, the reason it finally took off was standards, right? They finally got the group of independent vendors. I was one of them at a company called Matrix. When we came together and threw everything in the hat, I'm talking intellectual properties, things of that nature, the industry finally could have multiple reader makers, multiple tag makers, multiple software vendors. So that's no different than where we're sitting right now. And that's where AIMS, I think, has always been kind of the forefront of that and leading that. So we felt it would be interesting to bring both Mary Lou and Dwayne on, specifically because they already have that experience in their everyday life, as Mary Lou pointed out, in other industries, whether it's retail, pharma, manufacturing, you name it. The other thing that, just to throw out there, Dwayne is leading at AIMS the Cannabis Working Group. So they do have a set working group focused on it. So maybe you want to touch on that briefly, Dwayne, like the working group and kind of where the goal of that is as far as within AIM.
Yes, I do chair the AIM Cannabis Work Group. And what we do is we bring in, thought leadership, like-minded members to not only review, but to look at solutions for the cannabis industry. Again, most of the members are very familiar from a traditional retail standpoint, and we leverage those learnings to see how we can, help the cannabis industry, because a lot of the challenges are the same as a traditional, retailer. Cannabis has the same issues in terms of retention of employees, operational efficiency of employees, tracking and tracing of product. And so we come together and we work on solutions, and we welcome individuals from within the cannabis industry to join in and to talk to us in terms of some of the challenges that they have that, quite honestly, we may not be aware of. And so we look to tackle those and figure out how to be a bridge, from our community to yours.
Yeah, and it's funny because you bring that up. Look, cannabis does have nuances, right? I mean, Mary Lou, Dwayne, and I have had discussions as part of this working group. The reality of it is this is one of the few industries where you have two masters. One master is your own books, your own IT systems, like what's on the shelf, what's my inventory. The other one is a compliance requirement that you have to meet. So, there's a big brother aspect of it where cannabis is being watched at a state level, where I have to inform the state of Maryland where I reside if I was to harvest something, move something, destroy something, sell something. That doesn't exist in traditional retail. But Mary Lou, I know, AIM has been heavy in the whole Walmart rollout. I think the audience, it would be interesting to understand even their push towards RFID and the value, and really kind of why they're driving towards it. Because I think it is similar to what the cannabis industry is going to need, which is better visibility, better means by which they can do more with less. So you have some thoughts on that, Mary Lou?
Absolutely. And you hit the nail on the head, Dave. It's all about traceability. It's understanding where the products have been, and where they're going to be going. It's also a great tool to prevent anti-counterfeiting of some of the products, even theft, not only theft by customers, but even theft by some of the employees as well. So there's a lot of different cost savings using RFID or any of the asset tracking technologies. But we just hit on just a few of those already today.
When you look at in terms of job reports and things like that, one of the areas that has been deficient since the pandemic has been retail. Employees just aren't going back. And so since you don't have that pool of employees, and quite honestly, I would make the argument that, some of these retailers don't want as many employees as they once had. And a lot of the solutions that, we talk about and we discuss, that Mary Lou was talking about, does help with that operational efficiency in terms of having lean staffing that can be repurposed to do, more significant things instead of handling some of the main mundane tasks such as inventory and things like that. You can truly repurpose some of your staff and work better with a leaner staff.
You hit the nail on the head again. Everybody's hitting the nail on the head here. Operational efficiency is one of the major buzzwords in the industry right now. But as you have become aware, working with cannabis now or breaking into cannabis, it's an uphill battle almost, because so many in the industry aren't even aware of RFID, even though most of the states require the metric RFID tags. A lot of these licensees aren't aware of the power that's in them and how they can leverage them to create these operational efficiencies, to actually become efficient. The great thing about AIM, and Dwayne and everybody here, we've seen this, is you've all walked this path before. You've seen this in other industries, how long it took for acceptance to happen. So if you would, Mary Lou, I'd like you to just kind of talk about how RFID and track and trace and tracking inventory has just taken off over the last, 10, 20 years, but it's been around for 50 years. Just a little bit of history there, I think, might be helpful for our listeners.
Absolutely. And actually, RFID celebrated their 50th anniversary last year as well. So it's amazing how long this technology has been around and how I feel the industry, consumers, businesses are just starting to take advantage of it. So we talked a little bit about RFID in retail. There's also many mandates out there similar to cannabis where there's state regulations to track it from farm to store. But as you can imagine, there's regulations not only here in the States, but globally to track where food is from farm to table, to track pharmaceuticals. There's a lot of anti-counterfeiting and recalls involved in both the food and pharmaceutical space. And also theft. Isn't it nice and I just got a recall a couple of weeks ago from a product I purchased from Costco, and they sent me a postcard and they emailed me through the member card. And I thought it was great to be notified because I wasn't even aware that product was recalled. I'd already used it, but again, it's still nice that they can identify that they're able to track who purchased certain products so that they can make their customers aware of it. I think that that's a great benefit, a great customer engagement for it as well. RFID standards, as I mentioned, RFID has been around for 50 years. AIM has been instrumental in developing most of the RFID standards that shows how the technology can be used. Another organization that we collaborate with a lot is GS1. GS1 has RFID standards as well. The difference between AIM and GS1 standards is that GS1 standards focuses on how to use the technology in different vertical markets.
Yeah, and if I could jump in and just add a little bit to that, I know that we're speaking a lot about RFID, but RFID is not a total solution for the cannabis industry or any industry, quite frankly. I mean, you really need to figure out where RFID can be beneficial. I don't want it to, come off of this podcast like, hey, if you go out and get a RFID reader and some RFID tags, you're going to know exactly what to do. That's not the case, especially in cannabis, because one of the most highly purchase things are the pre-rolls. And, in a lot of instances, because of the way those pre-roll cones are stored, it makes it a challenge to leverage RFID. RFID is part of a solution. Now that you have large retailers like Walmart, Nordstrom, Chipotle, just to name a few, there are a lot of tier one retailers that are looking at and leveraging RFID. Now that they're implementing it, the cost of the tags and the cost of getting into RFID has come down dramatically. 10 years ago when I started at BlueStar, it was the year of RFID. And then for 2 to 3 subsequent years was the year of RFID. And then it just kind of phased away for a little bit. But I'm here to tell you, it's not going to go away. It's only going to get better. And if you can figure out, within your, cultivation, your processing, your dispensary, where you can leverage it, there are going to be some areas where you can't, and you're going to use traditional barcodes. That's not a problem. Like as you work with someone who really understands RFID, you'll see how it can be of a huge benefit for your organization.
That's dead on, because the reality of it is it's not a one-stop shop approach, Dwayne. You're right. Look, the reality of it is I look at RFID as a layer on top of a barcode, which is a layer on top of a human readable, right? Which is you know what I mean? So this is a layering technology, meaning that you never want to have just an RF only tag. You're going to want to have a barcode associated that I can look it up against. I'm going to want a number on it so that if that barcode gets smeared, smudged, torn, I still have a way to look it up. It's a data tracking device. And right, it's not a one-stop shop, meaning I'm not going to take a hammer, to screw in a screw. I'm going to use a screwdriver. It's the same kind of concept. The reality of it is like the systems we've built, our Maverick handheld, we built it to our customers can use their existing QR barcodes, because the labor to relabel things with RF also is a challenge, right? So you have to do the benefit analysis of, should I re-tag everything with RF to get the value on the other side? In some cases, it makes a lot of sense. We've got clients that do it on peg hooks where, trying to read a wall of product and look at each item with a barcode scanner or manually is tough. And now if I could scan that wall, it's a beautiful thing. So yeah, you're right. It's almost like we always preach, let's figure out which tools needed, because we've seen the industry do what you just described. They go out and buy a bunch of hardware, they buy a bunch of tags, then they look around going, now what? And that now what is kind of where we've tried to fill in that gap. But that's where the challenge lies is, okay, exactly what are you trying to achieve here? As you pointed out, Dwayne, RFID is just one piece to the puzzle.
Yeah, and to that point, I think, we can't stress enough of the value of, getting with someone who understands RF technology as well as barcoding, because, what I've seen in the cannabis industry, and I totally get it, guys, when you started out, there was no one there to support you. A lot of the manufacturers wouldn't take your phone calls, wouldn't support you, so you had to figure it out on your own. And you did a great job. But as we move into these other technologies, it truly is important to leverage the skills and expertise of people who know this technology. And so, I'd say, as much as you can, embrace, I get it. We weren't there for you in the very beginning. We're here now. So, leverage us, our contacts to help you be more successful.
That's really interesting you say that, because you're absolutely right. And what that kind of led to was you had a lot of licensees, growers, processors, you name it, in the beginning for the first few years who were having to pay for RFID tags, weren't getting any benefit from them, and now just don't understand what they can do with them still. So on that note, I'd like, to hear from both of you. What kind of ROI is there? I mean, why would Walmart start tagging pretty much everything in their stores, like even socks, even really cheap things? Obviously, the ROI is there if Walmart's doing it. Who else have you seen doing that? We've mentioned Lululemon and some others, but what are your thoughts on that? How do we get the cannabis industry to understand that even though they're paying for tags, it's going to actually save them money.
We talked a little bit about why Walmart did their implementation, and other retailers are no different. Again, the RFID, other asset tracking technologies, we're tracking things, we're tracking assets. The ROI can be seen. We discussed this before. It's anti-counterfeiting with recalls, with theft. There's employee shortages or redirecting employees to other areas. Maybe can't necessarily be done with these technologies. Also, people have in-store pickups. I know I shop almost weekly at Walmart, and it's nice when I get on the app and I find out if a particular product I'm looking for is in inventory, and if it is, where is it located? And because of these asset tracking technologies, that feature, that service, that benefit that all consumers can take advantage of is possible. Other Macy's is real big, even Chipotle. It's not just retailers, it's food service that are getting involved in utilizing RFID. High-end retailers or even alcohol manufacturers, they want to be able to track where their products have been, and they want, especially as a consumer, you want to know that $1,000 whiskey you're about to buy is real, that it is legitimate, it hasn't been counterfeit, or that $10,000 watch, is that actually a Rolex, or is it somebody else just trying to sell it as something else? I did see an eBay commercial that indicated that they're guaranteeing the legitimacy of the products that they're selling on eBay as well. So that is something that this technology, if utilized, is definitely a huge benefit. It helps with your brand name. It helps with consumers looking at your organization, your company, as someone that's trustworthy, because you have implemented and you've been able to share this data, this type of information that consumers are demanding more and more with them.
You know, people often ask me, like, why are we hearing about the technology so much now? And I think that a lot of that happened because of the pandemic, you know, quite honestly. Pre-pandemic, you know, I would have these conversations and, you know, it was a nice to have. Once the pandemic hit, and then we had supply chain issues and things like that. There's a large retailer, a friend of mine used to be CFO there. And I would joke with her that I can find more clothes in the dressing room than I ever could on the floor. And so, but pre-pandemic, we had an abundance of everything. And so there was nothing to where, you know, hey, if you go in and the shirt isn't your size, you know, that sort of thing. We say we have 5 or 10 in the store. We don't know where they are. We'll just order you another one. Once the pandemic hit, it became critical for a lot of these organizations be able to find, identify, and then ultimately sell those items that they had in store. And so, you know, one of the things I will say, early on, cannabis guys, they understood customer loyalty better than I think most of the major retailers did. You know, when you walk in there, you know, and a lot of them, the way you're greeted, you know, you sign up for the text messages, things like that. They were proactively reaching out and engaging with their customers. These technologies help you to do that on steroids. The loyalty programs can, you know, I mean, you be looking at real-time, you know, availability of inventory. And I know in some states, you know, there still may not be online ordering and that sort of thing. But then you're looking at, you know, VIP lanes. And, you know, if you pair a generative AI point of sale system or cultivation system with some of the technologies that we've discussed, then some of your processes become autonomous, you know. So, you know, now you know 100% real time which products sell the best, what demographics they sell to, when you need to start cultivating another batch in order to, you know, keep up with that demand. And so, you know, I think with the savviness, the individuals in the cannabis industry paired with this technology, long term, it's going to be a win-win.
Yeah, you again hit some very, very salient points here. The pandemic was a major influencer across the industry. It hit the cannabis industry too with the pickup lanes, and the customer service is fantastic at most of these dispensaries, all the ones I've been in. And the parallels that you can see, like Mary Lou was mentioning, about pickup, about having stuff ready for you when you order it, that's really where a lot of this comes in fulfillment and just knowing where everything is. They've got great e-commerce sites, but so many of these dispensaries and all the way up to cultivation and processing too, they just aren't able to track everything as easily as they should. They're required to track everything more than anybody else, but in a lot of cases, they just view this as a compliance headache that they have to do. We've seen a big change over the last few years too, from legacy growers who have been growing for years without having to worry about any kind of compliance to now getting more corporate, which is, good and bad, as anybody in the industry will tell you. So we do have a lot of people coming from other industries now who are familiar with RFID and these tracking systems, which are not just done for compliance, but to make more money. So to know where your inventory is, because that is money on the shelves, not in the bank, but it's money on the shelves. Dave, I know you had something too.
Yeah, look, I think what we're seeing is this industry is maturing, right? It's going to take some time, but it's happening fast, right? There's a target that this will be a 100 billion plus market. It's already hitting close to 20, 30 billion. So we're not talking a small niche. I mean, this is definitely a very much segmented marketplace that I think everyone in the industry, people like AIM, people like BlueStar, as Dwayne pointed out, are rightfully looking at. Look, I do think there's a necessity to bring in the expertise of certain technologies, but I think this is one of those industries where you better understand this industry. One of the things I learned early on getting started with the outlaw programs that I have is it took me a long time to actually go out and meet with these people. My suggestion is anybody that has interest in the space, learn the space. I always say, Hans always says, we don't own cultivation, distribution, or dispensaries. We don't. So we're dependent on these people to tell us their problems, their pains, their issues, because too often in most industries, people just show up and throw up, I like to call it, which is, I've got an app, here's what it does, good luck. It will not work in this industry. There's some nuances that if you aren't familiar with seed to sale, you're not knowing metric and APIs, you're not going to make these customers happy. So Dwayne, you probably are familiar with that. I'm just saying, I just don't want my concern. And one of the reasons, just to bluntly put, the reasons I wanted Outlaw to be part of AIMS is I respect AIMS. I know AIMS. I trust AIMS. But I also, with Dwayne and the relationship I've had with him, is the fact that, we're honest with each other saying, hey, look, not anybody that today is tracking flowers with RF is an ideal partner to bring into cannabis, because you better understand cannabis in and of itself. What do you think, Dwayne?
I absolutely agree. I think, you said it very eloquently. One of the benefits, I think from, both AIM and BlueStar, we're not trying to sell you a product. I can't sell you directly anything, like we sell through a reseller channel and you have to have a reseller certificate. What we want to do is we want to be trusted advisors to you to help steer you in the right direction. I think that's just as necessary, because a lot of people are preying on people in the cannabis industry and providing them faulty solutions or half-baked solutions, so to speak. What we want to do is we want to help you to get the right solution the first time. And so, I would say as much as you can leverage, myself and Mary Lou and AIM, because we're not selling you anything.
Yeah, we've been very happy working with you and with AIM. And the great news out there for all our listeners, licensees, is they're absolutely right. They're a great group to go to for advice, and they have a cannabis working group. They understand the industry. One of the major hurdles to overcome or barriers to entry in this industry is that you, like Dave said, you have to know the industry, but it's not just the industry. This is a different culture. It's got its own rules. We all pretty much get along. We all know each other. It is a fantastic industry to be in. but you have to know it, and you have to, believe in the culture, in my opinion. On that note, I know that you have an upcoming webinar that everybody's invited to. Do you want to give some information about that?
So our cannabis work group is preparing a webinar for which everyone is invited to. It's scheduled for Tuesday, March 19th. It's from 12 to 12:30 Eastern time. And it's going to focus on your industry. Cannabis is an emerging market, but for many of BlueStar's resellers, AIM members, for which Outlaw Technology is one, we've been down this road before. So we want to talk about how the technology's traceability has been active in other vertical markets. And we've talked a lot about that today during this podcast. We'll also have a couple case studies, the success stories that you can hear about relating to how other dispensaries, other growers have utilized and have seen for themselves the ROI. And you'll also be, also there'll be an opportunity for open Q&A. So you'll be able to be engaged with the speakers and also with the other users on the webinar as well.
And just one more time, how do they register for this webinar? How do they sign up for it? What do they have to do?
Yes. So if they want to visit the AIM North America website, that's www.aim-na.org. All the details will be on the homepage of that website and a link to register.
And Dwayne, do you want to put out some contact information for you or for BlueStar?
Absolutely. Anyone that wants to get a hold of me, my email address is drobuck, ROEBUCK, at BlueStar, BLUESTARINC.com. You can also visit our BlueStar website, which is www.bluestarinc.com, to see, the variety of products, hardware manufacturers that we work with. And anybody who reaches out to me, like we had produced a cannabis seed to sell, put out for MJ Biz a couple of years ago. I'm more than happy to share some of that. Happy to introduce you to some resellers and hardware manufacturers if you choose.
Thank you for that. And we let you know this ahead of time. We end every episode with the same question. So Dave, why don't you do the honors?
All right, Mary Lou and Dwayne, we always like to know who your favorite outlaw is, be it fictional, be it someone in your life that you consider an outlaw, whatever it may be. We've got some really strange responses, I'll tell you. So
I would shock everybody and list George Washington as my favorite outlaw. But in light of what has come out this week, and I'm a huge fan of his and his music, I'm going to say Bob Marley. Any guy who comes out with a song that he shot the sheriff, but he did not shoot the deputy, that's an outlaw for you right there.
I'm going to go see that movie.
Music. Yeah, he's an artist that I really wish if I had the ability to see. He passed away. I was too young, but his music lives on. And trust me, since I saw it on Wednesday night, I've been playing Bob Marley.
Oh, you already saw the movie?
Yes, I did. Huh? Yeah. Good movie.
I saw the trailer. I really want to see that. Absolutely.
Yeah. People are saying, it's not a lot of action. And I'm like, how much action do you want from Bob Marley? He's not James Bond, It's learning about the man.
Bob Marley is synonymous with this industry we're speaking of, right? So Bob Marley, there's a lot of Marley strains. There's a lot of Marley stuff. So
when you watch the movie, they literally asked him, they make an inference in terms of how much cannabis he smokes on a daily basis. And I almost fell out my chair, the amount that the lady asked the reporter, because he even had to question her. So I'm not going to give it away, but look for it if you watch the movie.
I have, and it's a TV show I actually started binge watching over the holidays. It's called The Blacklist. James Spader plays a character called Reddington. And he's one of those guys that you love, but you also hate because he is a villain, but there's a good side to him as well. But it can be hard to watch.
He's a master manipulator. I watched that before myself. I love how James Spader, how calm, cool, and collective he always seems to be.
He's
I love like Christopher Walken, you know?
Yes, exactly. Well, thank you, Mary Lou and Dwayne, for being on our show.
Hey,
Thank
thank
you.
you for having us.
Sounds great. And thank you, everyone, for listening. If you have any questions you'd like us to ask on our show about compliance, metric, or automation, or anything cannabis related, please email them to us at info@outlawtechnology.net. You can download past episodes of our program by going to outlawtechnology.net, cannabisradio.com, or the Cannabis Radio app for iTunes and Google Play, as well as subscribing to the show on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Pandora, Spotify, and YouTube. Thanks for listening, and be well.